Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. This is Thursday, the 23rd. It's roughly 11:03. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard,
Present.
Vice Chair Tyus, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderwoman Boyd,
Present.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman Oldenburg,
Present.
Alderman Ryan,
Here.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Alderman Page,
Present, but no access to camera due to a technical failure.
Chairman Pacoro.
Present.
8 present, you have quorum.
Okay, well, then we'll go ahead and take a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, June the 8th committee meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tyus, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderman Ryan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Page,
Aye, but no access to camera due to a technical failure.
Chairman Pacoro.
Aye.
8 aye votes.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and recognize Alderwoman Shamin Clark Hubbard on Board Bill 47. If you want to go ahead and let us know what's happening and any of your speakers that you want to have speak, like Dr. Dan Isom or who, then it's all yours right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I wanted to ask if the clerk could read first what Board Bill 47 is.
Madam Clerk, would you please read Board Bill 47?
Board Bill 47, introduced by Alderwoman Shamin Clark Hubbard, Alderman Ryan, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Negracia, Alderman Todd, Alderman Page, Alderwoman Rice, Alderwoman Peel, and Alderwoman Middlebrook. The proposed bill provides for independent investigation of law enforcement misconduct and use of force incidents. The bill repeals ordinance number 69984 as amended by ordinance number 70532 and enacts in lieu thereof an ordinance that reconstitutes and provides staff support for the Civilian Oversight Board and provides coordination and staff support for the Detention Facility Oversight Board created under ordinance number 71430. The bill also established the division of civilian oversight within the Department of Public Safety and authorizes the establishment of a public integrity unit directed by the Circuit Attorney in the City of St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we are very familiar with this work, right? And I think that the 11 of us that have signed on to this bill are happy now to pick up the baton of this process and work that started long before many of us that are signed on this bill were down here at the board. So I would just like to pay homage to the work, the people that put in the work prior to this and have continued to stay in this fight and continue to stay in this plea with us to the betterment of our community with this Civilian Oversight Board. I just wanted to read one of the whereases so that we are clear on the purpose of the Division of Civilian Oversight is to strengthen the integrity of the public confidence in the criminal justice institutions by promoting transparency, fairness, and public accountability and conducting thorough, impartial, and independent professional standard inquiries into misconduct and use of force incidents. I teased with someone last night at a meeting that this is probably one of the only pieces of legislation that we know is so necessary, but honestly, we pray we never have to use, right? Because we pray there are no incidents that lead us here, right? But it is necessary. So with that being said, this is part of the process. Nobody's trying to rush ram any of this down anybody's throat, which was kind of teased again to me last night. It don't feel like you haven't been heard, because this is the part where you get heard, right? And this is not going to be the last time you'll be able to get heard, because this is the Civilian Oversight Board. So we want to make sure there are ample opportunities for the civilians to be heard, accounted, and voice their opinions in this important legislation. So we're here to listen today. And with me, I have Dr. Dan Isom, Director of Public Safety, and Mr. Matthew Drummond, our new Commissioner of the Civilian Board Oversight. After their introductions, we can go ahead and follow through on the list of speakers. Thank you.
Dr. Dan Isom, you want to go ahead and?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard for giving us opportunity to speak on this bill this morning. Before I start, I just want to give the new Commissioner, Matt Drummond, an opportunity to introduce himself and give a little bit of background of his professional experience to the Public Safety Committee.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Excited for this opportunity. Just to introduce myself, I know I've worked with some of you before, but I just retired after 20 years with the FBI here in St. Louis. All 20 years were here in St. Louis. A big part of my career was civil rights investigations and enforcement. Also, probably important is a big part of that after Ferguson is I was full-time community outreach for about 3.5 years, just working with a lot of these issues. And through those experiences, I just come to believe in the importance of police legitimacy and building that. And I think this legislation is a big part of that, of building legitimacy by showing that police are accountable and transparent. So I look forward to that, working with this. Prior to the FBI, I was an attorney. I spent 3 years as a prosecutor in Michigan, and then 3 years doing corporate work as well. So that's kind of just a brief overview of my experiences. And then also I've lived in the city now for 16 years in the 26th Ward. So
thank you, Matt, and we're happy to have him on board, especially as we embark on this discussion about reframing the Civilian Oversight Board. As many of you all know, this has been a discussion that's gone on for many years. Just some background. I think what Alderwoman Clark Hubbard indicated to tee us off in this discussion is very important. As you all know, my background as chief of police, but also I spent 3 years as the commander of the Internal Affairs Unit when I was with the police department. So certainly I've got a lot of confidence in the police department and what they do, but this is not about confidence. It's about what Alderwoman Clark Hubbard indicated is making sure that we strengthen the transparency and the oversight and the trust in our criminal justice system, which results in better safety for our community. So this is really what this is about. So as you might know, currently the Internal Affairs Division of the St. Louis Police Department conducts all investigations. Those complaints go to the Internal Affairs Division. They conduct both internal and external complaints, whether criminal or non-criminal. The current Civilian Oversight Board reviews investigations and provides recommendations or insight to the police department about either additional steps in the investigation that need to be done or potential recommendations on discipline. Most of the work, of course, and the decision is done internal to the police department. This legislation really reframes that process. It starts with a separate civilian investigative unit with the Civilian Oversight Board. They will do independent internal investigations. The investigations will come to them for a first instance of investigation. If it is something that the police department can investigate, they will defer it to them. But it puts the power of internal investigations with the Civilian Oversight Board. In addition to that, through an agreement with the Department of Public Safety and the Civilian Oversight Board, it provides for criminal investigations to be done jointly with the Circuit Attorney's Office. One of the reasons why this proposes that structure is that it's very difficult to completely separate the police department and their apparatus from criminal investigations. But there is a recognition that the Circuit Attorney is the chief law enforcement officer in the city of St. Louis, and ultimately any final decision on a criminal matter will be decided by the Circuit Attorney. And therefore, through agreement based on this new legislation, we will have a cooperative agreement where the Circuit Attorney will co-investigate criminal investigations with the Circuit Attorney's Office, the Department of Public Safety, and the FIU division of the police department. As you know, there has been established a detention facility oversight board. And we also currently have the Civilian Oversight Board for the police department. Of course, under this legislation, those will remain independent, but come under the umbrella of a new division, the Division of Civilian Oversight, which will be in the Department of Public Safety. As I indicated, there will be a public integrity unit established through the Circuit Attorney, which will co-investigate instances of criminal matters with the FIU unit within the police department. So all persons have the legislation. I believe this strengthens what we will call the Division of Civilian Oversight Board, giving it the ability to do first instance investigations of the police department with independent civilian investigators. And then on the criminal side, an agreement will be established with the Circuit Attorney's Office and their public integrity unit to do independent investigations on the criminal side. As it's structured today, I think this is really groundbreaking legislation that really provides a framework that is truly independent and will provide for greater transparency and trust in the system, which ultimately I believe will result in better public safety.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, anyone else or anything else?
No, not this time. We're just ready to listen.
And I think that's what we're gonna do. So if everyone that's going to testify could please turn their camera on, we're gonna swear everybody in at one time. I will have to say, I've never heard anyone say, no, I intend to lie. But nevertheless, we're gonna ask everybody to raise the right hand, and do you swear or affirm that what you're gonna tell us is the truth? And if you could turn your mics on and just say aye, so we know it.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And nobody's gonna lie, so. I don't know that anybody, we do it, but I don't know anybody who would say, no, I actually plan on lying during my testimony. So anyway, we're gonna go down the list. And I'm gonna right now, Sharita will kind of keep time. What we will do, we normally go from people that are in support to people that are opposed. There's 11 people in support, 2 people opposed, and then 2 people that have really no opinion, in the sense they just want to talk. So we're going to start and go down the list. So John Lawrence, just tell us who you are, and if you're a city resident, we always like to know that. But and then just go ahead, and we'll give you 3 minutes, and about 1 minute before the time's up, the clerk will kind of just give you a heads up, and we'll always let you finish. Okay?
I'm sorry, Chairman Vaccaro,
Yes.
we are giving them 3 minutes, correct?
Yeah, 3 minutes with a 1 minute warning toward the end.
Got it. Thank you.
If they're coming close.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Okay, and looks like Joshua Lawrence. I'm probably wrong, but are you with us? Let's see. Joshua, Joshua Lawrence.
There's
Okay.
a note there saying that he's not going to be on.
Oh,
And he's,
okay, I'm sorry. Larry Greaves.
There was a note in the chat that his link wasn't working, so I'm not sure if it can be resent to him. We can move on to the next while it's being resent.
Okay,
Hopefully, if STLTV can resend it to Larry Graves.
okay. Can we resend it to Larry Gray? In the meantime, we'll go to Marlene Gebhard. And I'm sorry if I mess up people's names. Marlene, are you with us?
I am. My name is Marlene Gebhard, and I am a resident of O'Fallon in St. Charles County. I'm also an active member of the Fatal State Violence Initiative. I'm here today to testify for passage of Board Bill 47 with recommendations for amendments. My unarmed grandson, Tyler Gebhard, was shot and killed by St. Louis County Police Officer Josh Lashley, July 9th, 2016. So I speak to this bill from my personal painful experience. As I read through the bill, there are numerous recommendations that I would like to make, but in the interest of time, I will just give you several. There's a section on page 23 of 38 that calls for individuals not to be identifiable. I would specifically recommend that officers' names not be redacted or omitted from the annual accountability report, because we typically see that officers are repeat offenders, and I think it's in the public interest to be transparent about that. On page 16 and 17, there's a section regarding support for surviving families. I would like to see that be measurable. Specifically, instead of promptly notifying about the death or body location, that notification should happen immediately, or at least within 3 to 5 days. We too often have to go through an enormous amount of work just to find out where our loved one is, and that should be at least identified. On page 16 or 17 also, it says next of kin, we feel should be provided investigative records before they become open to the public. All too often, they're shared with the news media before we even get access to them, if we ever get access to them. In my case, I will tell you that
1 minute left.
and the oversight board's work is impeded. There needs to be more of a remedy than just sending a letter to the mayor and the Public Safety Committee. For example, we think the mayor should be able to respond within 14 days with a decision on whether that work is impeded and what she's ordering the police to do. And finally, given the short-term limits for members of this board, there should be more detail on onboarding process for oversight board members so that cases do not get left behind or mismanaged. And that recommendation comes from page 35 of 38. And I'll cede my time back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So we'll go the other direction. In opposition is Daniel Pister. Daniel?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Okay, and you're ready for your 3 minutes here?
All right, thank you. I'm opposed to it because we currently live in a city with an extremely high crime rate, one where lower level infractions essentially go ignored, and the lack of officers that we have to address those are extremely low. We're down like 300 officers, I believe. We continue to ask officers to address certain societal and cultural problems that were manifested by ineffective policy and unintended consequences of that policy. We continue to villainize law enforcement criminals and allow criminals to roam free without any consequences. My main issue with the bill is, I do not condone excessive force in any way when it is not appropriate, and I do not condone that in any means whatsoever. But my concern is how this is going to fit into the context of law enforcement in the entire St. Louis region, what it's going to do for our current crime rate, what it's going to do for retention, what it's going to do for recruitment and the numbers of the police force, what it's going to do for the current morale of the police force, which is extremely low. And, if we're going to do this, what are other municipalities in the current region doing? Are they doing the same thing? Is this going to essentially allow us to train officers only for them to bolt after several years and go to nearby municipalities or counties? Have we taken that into consideration? Have we looked at other regions that have done the same thing and what the impacts happen there? So those are my primary concerns with the bill, and that's why I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go on the other side. Sarah Nixon. Miss Nixon, are you with us? I'm gonna look down the list here. I don't see her. We're gonna go down the list here to number 5, which would be Charles Lowe. Charles, you with us? Let me look down the list over here. Let's see. I don't see him on there. It seems like a lot of people signed up, may have had something else they had to do today. Tammy Buford. Tammy, are you with us?
I'm here. It's Tammy Bufford.
Tammy Bufford, we got a winner. You're up.
Good morning. My name is Tammy Bufford. I'm a resident of the 25th Ward, and I'm a member of the Fatal State Violence Response Program. I'm here today to testify in support of the passage of Board Bill 47. On December 10, 2014, my son Cortez Bufford was brutally beaten by 8 St. Louis Metropolitan Police officers. He sued, and he was told that the police would have a target on his back. Then on December 12, 2019, Officer Lucas Roethlisberger decided that he would be judge, jury, and executioner when he killed my son that evening. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department has the highest rate of police killings per population of any U.S. city, according to the Mapping Police Violence. From 2009 to 2019, St. Louis Metropolitan Police was involved in the deaths of at least 69 people, 69 different people. In 2014, St. Louis Metropolitan Police created the Force Investigative Unit. Under the current system, it's my understanding that over 20 killings by the police have been investigated by the Force Investigative Unit, but yet to have received any type of determination or filings with the Circuit Attorney, Kim Gardner. A review of investigation by St. Louis Metropolitan Police Internal Affairs Unit or a review of any kind from the Civilian Oversight Board. I asked the FIU officer that was handling the investigation in my son's case, after he completed his investigation, what was his determination? He told me that he had did his part and that he had no determinations or findings. In my son's case, an investigative reporter did an independent investigation, and she followed the evidence and interviewed witnesses. She was told by the witnesses that the police never even reached out to them to get their statements.
1 minute left.
Her investigation showed that the officers gave false statements. This shows that the police cannot be trusted to investigate themselves, their friends, or their brothers. With Bill 47, the Division of Civilian Oversight will have real power to discipline these bad actors, produce policy research and community outreach that will authorize the Police Integrity Unit, a separate department in the Circuit Attorney's Office, to conduct criminal investigations. A separate department for professional standards investigations and not inside of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police. I ask that the board vote yes on the Board Bill 47 as it stands. However, we do need to make some amendments to the bill for the current police officers not being able to be a part of the division of the civilian oversight, because otherwise
3
it's
minutes.
just still the
Thank you.
FIU.
Okay, what, were you finished then?
I had a little more, but I'll go ahead and give back my time.
Okay. Actually, I ran out of time, but if it was real quick, I was to let you finish up. Okay, we're gonna go then to the other side. In opposition is Keith Rose.
Yes, I just want to clarify. I think I might have made a mistake. I meant to sign up as neutral on the bill.
Oh,
in its current
okay,
form.
we'll make it neutral. That's okay, because we're gonna still we'll go with neutral for you. That's okay.
Thank you,
You
Chairman.
got 3 minutes, so we'll go for it.
So my name is Keith Rose. I live 3600 Bamberger, and I am neutral on this bill in its current form. I really appreciate all the work that the Alderwoman has put into this draft. I know going back and forth between the different constituencies has probably been very complex. And her work with the mayor's office has been appreciated, but I would still really like to see some of those amendments that we were just hearing about. Right now, I am concerned that this bill is not civilian oversight, in that we are having active police officers who are temporarily separated from the police department doing a lot of the investigations in this bill. I would really like to see firmer language around what it means to be a civilian. Likewise, I would like to see the division taken out of the control of the Director of Public Safety. I think we all understand the importance of independent oversight, and I don't think that this bill, as it currently is structured, is independent enough. I do understand, as Mr. Pfister was telling us, that some police officers might have concerns. I don't think they should. From what I have seen, this bill isn't going to cause any problems with the police. That's one of the reasons why, if I were to take a position, I would have to say opposed. I don't think that we currently have enough structure in this bill to give us the kind of civilian oversight that the people of St. Louis have demanded for years. You know, back in 2015, when we originally passed the COB, people wanted this to work. I'm disappointed to say that I might be the only member of the public who actually attends the COB meetings, or at least in the last year or two. And as that person, the only person who's not on the COB, who's at their meetings, I can tell you that it is quite dysfunctional. And they have an extreme deference to the police position. I would like to see firmer language around what it means for the investigations that we're having and how independent they can be. Because right now the COB has generally been a rubber stamp on what internal affairs has been doing. So I do appreciate that the board is revisiting the COB and trying to strengthen it. But I would like to say that it's not strong enough. What we don't want is our police department to go back to how they've been in the past and how we've been seeing them day in and day out behave. We don't want more riots in the streets. We don't want more people, out at nights demanding justice. St. Louis finally needs to be able to heal. And so we need a strong COB to be able to prevent those problems that we've seen in recent years. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna go, because I saw that Mr. Graves, Larry, you joined us now. So
Yes.
go ahead and just kind of
Okay.
let us know if you're in the city or not, and you don't have to give your address or anything, but, and then just, you got your 3 minutes, and you're in support of the bill side, so.
All right. My name is Larry Graves. I reside in Hanley Hill. My son was killed in April 2019 when St. Louis police officers and medics attempted to carry out an involuntary commitment. A St. Louis EMS medic administered 2 chemical restraints. According to the police report on page 12, one of the chemical restraints was twice the recommended dose, and another chemical restraint was added to that. That made that injection a lethal injection. The city medical examiner, after consulting with an agent of the St. Louis City Police Department at the autopsy, ruled my son's death to be from excited delirium. According to CBS News, 60 Minutes, a respected and reliable news source, reported on December 12, 2020, that the American Medical Association, the World Health Organization, and the American Psychiatric Association did not recognize excited delirium as a medical condition. In that newscast, Paul Applebaum, who oversees changes to the psychiatric main diagnostic manual, stated, quote, excited delirium tended to be applied in cases of in-custody death of young male African Americans, unquote. In December 2020, the American Psychiatric Association issued a statement that excited delirium has not been validated as a medical condition. The American Psychiatric Association statement also concluded, quote, the concept of excited delirium has been invoked in a number of cases to explain or justify injury or death to individuals in police custody, and the term excited delirium is disproportionately applied to Black men in police custody, unquote. In June 2021, the American Medical Association issued a press release which stated in part, the new policy addresses reports that show a pattern of using the term excited delirium and pharmacological intervention as ketamine as justification for excessive police force, disproportionately citing in cases where Black men die in law enforcement custody, unquote. Note that both the American Medical Association and the American Psychiatric Association oppose using chemical restraints without a legitimate medical reason to do so, ordered by non-medical
1
personnel.
minute
The
left.
reason I'm supporting Board Bill 47 is the fact that a private company seeking to sell law enforcement their goods and services is how law enforcement began using excited delirium to protect that private company's product from liability. That company provides legal tactics and paid expert witnesses. In some cases, the very medical examiner colluded with agents of the police department. And that tells me St. Louis Police Department needs help, needs oversight, especially when private companies are seeking to infiltrate and dictate policy and procedures to law enforcement. I would ask that you vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to hear about your son. That sounds tragic. So we don't have any more on the opposition side, so I'm going to run down this list and then we'll go to the couple with no no position. Mr. Pruitt, you're up next.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, member of the committee. Mr. Chairman, back in December of 2020, we had the first uprising, if we can call it, at the city jail. Roughly about 89 days after that, a month after that, February the 8th, the mayor put together a task force in which I had the opportunity to serve on. Within 30 days after we begun service, we came back with a report and recommendations. So in 72 days, we were able to, from the time this thing started to within 72 days, take a good look at a lot of this, and also begin to look at what public safety oversight need to look like overall, not only as relates to the jail, but as relates to police oversight and the Department of Public Safety overall. So for the past 15 months, and by the way, right in the middle of that, we was also appointed as a subcommittee of this committee to work with the administration, to work with the city council's office and everybody else involved to draft an umbrella that would create a facility that allows for greater participation of commissioners of both a detention facilities board, police oversight board, and have the staffing and the support needed overall from the Division of Public Safety so that they all can act in concert, act effectively and efficiently to do our jobs. And we've been debating and discussing this piece of legislation and the overall umbrella since March of 2021 to now is June 2022, 15 months later. So if anybody is thinking that this thing has been rushed or been shoved down anybody's throat, that hasn't been the case. If anybody from the activist community is saying that they did not have adequate ability to have input, that the administration did not reach out for them and allow them to participate in the deliberations, allow them to see the legislation and have input as it was being drafted, that is also untrue. We have been working to put this mechanism together for a while now. And we need to move ahead, pass a piece of legislation, put it in place, get these commissioners in place, get these investigators in place, and get the staffing and other resources in place, and give this vehicle an opportunity to move down the road. I know that down the road, as we implement it, there will be plenty of time and instances where we may need to tweak it. We may need to recalibrate it. But not to do anything at this point in time, 15 months later, is a disservice to not only the citizens of St. Louis, but as a spit in the face for those young men and women who started this. Because let's be clear, this all started as an outcome of people felt that their civil rights were being violated within a correctional facility back in December the 29th of 2020. And if not but for their action, the task force and the overall work of everybody to move this thing and get it to a point, and even a relook at the civilian oversight board of the police, none of this probably wouldn't happen. So we need to get off the pot. We need to move this legislation, and we need to give it an opportunity to put this in place and see how it works with the understanding we will be able to calibrate.
Stay where I told you to.
We'll be able to calibrate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. And thank you for serving. I served with you on that same committee, and I think we have the same heart in this. I'm gonna go back to Sarah Nixon, who joined us late. She's here now, though. Sarah, you're up.
Hi, thank you all for your time. My name is Sarah Nixon, and I am the Fatal State Violence Response Program Manager, and I live in the 20th Ward, and today I am reading a statement on behalf of Miss Tony Taylor, whose son, Kerry Ball Jr., was shot and killed by SLMPD in April 2024, 2013, and she resides in the 2nd Ward. She wrote that she supports the bill, but has concerns that the language still doesn't really give families a measurable timeline on receiving their loved one's body or any information surrounding their deaths. SLMPD has the highest rate of police killings by population of any police department of the 100 largest US cities, according to Mapping Police Violence. And we still have many laws in place that work against the family. Under the current system, it's our understanding that over 20 killings by police have been investigated by SLMPD's Forced Investigation Unit, but have yet to receive a determination on filing criminal charges from Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner. She asks that funding be available for the Public Integrity Unit so that the police stop policing themselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I do believe the funding is in this budget. I do believe that. I'm going to jump over to, we're going to go over to the no position just to mix it up a little. That would be John Chasnoff. You got your 3 minutes here.
Thank you for letting me speak to you all today. And I wanted to start by thanking the members of the administration who worked on this bill, and a special shout out to Alderwoman Hubbard for the work that she's done on this. And very, very open to the input from stakeholders in this bill, and we appreciate the cooperation and the conversations that we've had. I wanted to start out by saying that I think there are a lot of really wonderful things in this bill. I'm speaking as a member of CAPCAR, the Coalition Against Police Crimes and Repression, and we have long supported the idea of an independent entity that would do civilian oversight for the city. And we've long held the principle that police cannot investigate themselves. No organization really can. And so we're happy to see this first step in creating independent oversight through a division. We would prefer ideally to have a separate department of civilian oversight, but this is a good first step. We are very happy to see Internal Affairs Department and the Force Investigative Unit see those functions moved out of the police department. And we're excited to see the professional support and staffing that's being added to increase the capacity for both the Civilian Oversight Board and for the oversight of the jails. And we're very excited to see that the Circuit Attorney will now have the authority to investigate cases and open some of the older cases that have languished for far too long. But I'm still, and CAPCAR is still neutral on this bill, because we think that there are some flaws that might inhibit it from really living up to its full potential and its intent. For one thing, Keith Rose mentioned the fact that police officers can be temporarily assigned from the police department as investigators to this new division. And there's no limit in the bill on how many of those officers can be assigned and how much they might take over or overly influence the investigation. We are also concerned that there's a provision in the bill that could delay investigations of professional standards if they quote unquote interfere with civil cases. And we think that that could open the door for some of these investigations being delayed way too long. And finally, we have some concern about the legality of the establishment of a public integrity unit in the Circuit Attorney's Office. The establishment of that through a city ordinance, we think it's overstepping the bounds of the city to authorize something for the Circuit Attorney, a county office, and we're concerned that that might be challenged in the court. And lastly, there are some requirements for what will be in the memorandum of understanding between the city and the Circuit Attorney's Office. But we think that those protocols at this point, the requirements of protocols are still insufficient to ensure that the proper functioning of and integration of the county office and city functions is going to be properly implemented. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Inez, are you with us? Inez? Inez?
I am.
Okay, good. And I'm sorry for if that's not how you pronounce that, but
No, that's correct. Inez.
that sixth grade education, me and Jethro Bodine had. You probably don't remember the Beverly Hills, I'm old. Anyway, Inez, you're up.
Good morning. Thank you all for holding this meeting. I want to especially thank Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard for all of her work trying to get this through. I am neutral on this bill at this time. I am neutral and not opposed because the bill that, we're here to discuss today is better than what we currently have. Our current Civilian Oversight Board has no teeth, has no power, has apparently very little will to actually look into the issues facing the police department. I heard some comments earlier, and I just want to name that St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department kills more people per capita than any other police department in the entire country. We also have more police officers per capita than 90% of the police departments in this country. So when we start hearing statements about we can't hold anybody, we're down 300 officers, we have more police than almost any major city in the country, and that is a fact. Again, back to the bill. I'm neutral on the bill. It's far better than what we have now, but I also have concerns. I think that there are things that we can add to the bill to make it have more teeth and not really provide any wiggle room. Two of the things that I have concerns about, and please correct me if I'm wrong. One, it looks like that there cannot be concurrent investigations of both criminal conduct and personnel matters at the same time. All that's going to do is slow down the process. Those investigations should be able to run concurrently. I also don't like the fact that SLMPD officers can be investigators for the Civilian Oversight Board. I don't care what anyone says, the police cannot be trusted to investigate themselves. The police cannot be trusted to investigate themselves. So we should do something about that. So I'm going to cut my time short because I want to make sure I leave room for the multiple families of victims of extreme police violence get an opportunity to say their say. But I am generally supportive of this bill. I look forward to seeing it come out of committee and amendments being offered in robust debates on how we can make the bill bigger, stronger, better, tougher, and get the true civilian oversight that we need for the city, for one of the most murderous police department in the country. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.
Unmute yourself. Vaccaro.
Let's see if I can get this. Thank you. I am so sorry. Gina, so apparently you don't read lips, but you're next up, and I apologize for the not having my mic on.
Hi, my name's Gina Torres. I'm also a member of Fatal State Violence, and I'm mother of Isaiah Hammett, who was married to June 7th, 2017 to an unmarried bride. I just have a little bit to say because a lot of people had said a lot of stuff that I feel that in the bill that I don't agree with. One thing I don't agree with is the police policing themselves. Police cannot be trusted at all. If they go over to investigate, I feel like no matter what, to me, I feel like the police are a gang, and they're brothers, and they're going to stick together. No matter if they're a police officer, if they go over to investigate. I just feel like there's some amendments that needs to be put forth to this bill. I mean, I'm for the bill. I think that there's a lot, you guys have in there that's good, but just the policing and stuff and the force and everything, I'm just not with that. Thank you.
Darn it. I got to keep remembering to turn my own mic on. Emmanuel, you're up next.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, my name is Emmanuel Powell. I live in the 8th Ward. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak and the great work on this bill. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and we know that. Someone spoke earlier. We have so much loss here in St. Louis from community violence and interpersonal violence that's not currently addressed by our current system of public safety. But it's really insidious when a loss of life comes at the hands of a police officer or a corrections officer, or really any government actor that's supposed to be here to protect and serve. It's really personal for me. I lost my cousin, Ronnie Shorter, January 21st, 2017, back home in my hometown, Greenville, Mississippi, when he was killed by 5 officers. And that was just the start. Our family really had no access to information. Under our Sunshine Law, they got a lot of redacted information that made it impossible to understand what happened. There was a really poor, biased, and not independent investigation of the circumstances of his death, which resulted in those officers being let off by a grand jury. And overall, there was no real professional standards inquiry as this bill offers. So officers took a short paid leave and then were brought back onto the force, back on the streets without any discipline, training, or anything like that. I'm at our City Defenders as a fellow, where I work with families here in St. Louis, where we know the need is great. Families, we know we've identified at least 69 people killed by SLMPD from 2009, 2019, and 18 people who died in St. Louis jails. So the need is great. Families I've talked to, families you're hearing today have experienced what I've experienced, what my family has experienced, not having information and access, not receiving trauma-informed information about the circumstances of their loved one's death, or even where the location of their loved one's body. Justice is not real in this system.
1 minute left.
Because we do have police policing themselves inside of our internal affairs system, as well as our criminal investigations. So this is why I support this bill, because it's a start to changing that system. But as others have said, there needs to be some changes. In terms of professional standards inquiry, as on page 5 of 38, we need to not have SLMPD officers doing these investigations. That is police policing themselves. We need professional standards inquiries to not be stayed as what's on page 18. That's been abused already. We have multiple cases of killings by police that have not been moved through the system so that the Civilian Oversight Board or professional standards inquiries can happen. My real desire, though, is that we get more innovative, be it this committee, our mayor, board of aldermen, so that we can create systems that actually focus on families and repair, offer a space for healing for us and our communities. That reparations bill that has been introduced and passed, that's something I would love to see for this particular issue. Thank you so much.
But when you finished, since we made you wait so long.
Well, yeah, that's my main point, which is this is a great start, but we do need to focus on things like reparations or other processes that focus on healing and supporting families, which is named in this bill, ways to support. And I hope that we can go further. Thank you.
Hey, Marcel, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Marcel Hagens. My name is Marcel Hagens. I am the policy coordinator with Action St. Louis and a resident of the 26th Ward. I'll keep it short because we second a lot of the comments that were made by families and other representatives on this call here today. So I'll keep it brief. Let me start by saying that we are ecstatic that the Division of Civilian Oversight is being moved out of the SLMPD. But also, as people were saying time and time again, police cannot police themselves. We do not trust the police here in the St. Louis city, both as a resident, as a representative of Action St. Louis. So with that being said, the fact that current SLMPD officers can be assigned as investigators, that is a no. We are not in support of that. And then within the language that says abiding any extensive conflict of interest or research and conflict of interest, I think just being a current SMPD police officer should be conflict of interest enough to not allow you to serve as an investigator. We are also urging that for the civilian investigators with law enforcement background, even though preferably we would like them not to, I would like to see that cap pushed out a little further to about 7 years removed or a little bit more, and then preferably with no relationship ties to SLMPD at all. So I will give back time now, keep it short and brief, but we do support the bill, but we think there's a lot of things that need to be changed in it before we get to a final yes. So thank you for your time, and you all have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too. God bless. Thank you. Last on the list is Fatima, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
And Mr. Chairman, Officer, I'm sorry, Charles Lowe has made it on the call as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't see it. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Fatima. Okay, so Charles, why don't you go ahead and my understanding you've joined us, Charles?
Yes. I'm sorry I came late to the meeting. So I heard the last gentleman's comment. I just want to make sure that, I guess apparently there's a requirement you have to have some law enforcement experience to be part of this investigative team for the Civilian Review Board. That was my main question on this. If we're going to do it, we need to make sure that the people that are investigating have some type of background to understand the policies and procedures of what's going on. So that was my main thing. If we're moving toward that way, I think as far as I can see, nothing will change because we have the same policy and procedures. So I just wanted to have a better understanding, I guess, of the process and where the bill is now as far as what the requirements were to be part of this investigative team. And so that's kind of my main question. But if they are individuals that will have prior police experience of some sort, that will help the process. I will say in looking at individuals, I'm assuming they will be in or around this area. There is a difference between urban policing and rural policing. There's just a type of incidents that you deal with and the type of crimes that are being committed. So I think that needs to be important in having this team of individuals that will investigate these crimes as well. That was the main thing I just wanted to say, but that was my main question. I think I got it answered. And once again, I apologize for coming kind of late to the party, but if we head that way, I think in my eyes, nothing will change as far as how the police process will be. It's just an investigative team that investigates misconduct, whatever's going on. So if that's where we're headed, I think nothing will change as far as the police department is concerned. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. So the last speaker was Fatima, but I have not heard her. Is anybody?
He sent an email.
Okay.
Yeah, in support.
Okay. Do you want to read the email? Because I don't have it.
It was sent in our boxes, and we can go ahead. We can. It's up to you if you want to read, or we can all read it. It was.
No,
sent to all the
I think we can just read it in our. Okay. Is there anybody else here? Welcome, Vice Chairwoman. Is there anybody here from the public that wants to speak that has not had the opportunity to speak? Please turn your picture on or jump in or something. So what I'd like to do, seeing no one, Dr. Isom, did you want to address any of the stuff you heard? I mean, the bill seems pretty straightforward to me. Obviously, I was there when this was being constructed, and I understand where a lot of this came from was when the civilian oversight, the police one said there was a lot of in cooperation than even getting anything, which brought this further on, giving them a little bit more authority. But is there anything in what the public said that you may want to address so that we understand as the board
Well, I think what I will address is that, based on much of the testimony, we do have a certain segment of the community that has a intense distrust for the police department. And although this is not exactly what some of those citizens would want in the bill, I do think we're trying to move towards within the structure of the law, personnel rules, employment rules, the city of St. Louis rules, a more independent structure that hopefully would begin to build trust in that segment of the community that does distrust the police. As I indicated earlier, really this is a step towards better public safety. If you have a segment of the community with severe distrust for the police department, calling the police, participating in public safety, being jurors is compromised. And so while it may not be the perfect bill for some, I do think it's a step in a positive direction so we can begin to hopefully build trust in that segment of the community that has lost trust.
Thank you. Commissioner, did you have anything you want to add or?
I appreciate everyone sharing their concerns. It was very informative, and I think it's important that we train our investigators well, and I take their concerns seriously about the influence of the police department.
Thank you. I think what we can do is certainly we go down the list of committee members and then those off the committee. If you have thoughts or, insight. So let me start down the list. Vice Chairwoman Tyus, do you have anything? Although I don't know if you were able to listen or not.
I did get to listen. However, I was there when we first started working on this 30 years ago. So I've been dealing with the civilian oversight for 30 years now. When Alderman then Terry Kennedy, now our clerk, first started introducing this, and I didn't ever vote for it because I always thought there were problems with the bills, which ended up being what I said. And so each year or so we would come back and change it. We didn't have subpoena power at one time. I've always had some problems with the independence of it because it's always been my argument. If the mayor is appointing the people, that's still not independent. I will want to point out something here that I see in this, because we did end up getting subpoena power. I see in here that we were going to do a public integrity unit directed by the circuit attorney in the city of St. Louis. So that rings bells and whistles for me because you all are speaking to a circuit attorney that, and I think most of the people here who they get along with and who they feel like that is impartial. And if they think the police is wrong, then that person would then speak out. But that's not, I've served with 5 circuit attorneys. So sometimes the circuit attorney and the police department were so inseparable, you almost didn't know them. So I guess I would ask the primary sponsor, what happens if the circuit attorney becomes a new person who is much more, for lack of a better term, and I don't want to say pro-police because I'm pro-police also, but much more in step with the police and less likely to look into public integrity. What happens then if you find out that the circuit attorney is no longer someone you could trust to be in charge of that unit? What happens at that point?
I would ask them, either Alderwoman Clark Hubbard or Commissioner or Dan Isom, any of the three, you can please kind of answer. That would be really nice.
I really want as the sponsor because I think the sponsor is sponsoring that, thinking of the person we have in office now, but you have to make laws based on that may not be that same person anymore.
Right. So Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Right, and she's absolutely correct, especially since she's been in on the conversations to get this bill to where it is now. So maybe if you have some amendments or some suggestions to that, and I would like Dr. Isom to chime in on it as well. But I think that the unit that they were putting together would still be in place with whoever the circuit attorney is. So that's important.
But I'm just saying, I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying some people are more proactive and will actually pursue charges and others. And I'll give you an example. I served with George Peach, who had to step down because he was stealing money and buying sex. But he was very close to the police. And he was that person who, if the police said something, that was the truth. And I know one time he actually took a position that he wasn't going to do what the police said. And I was a lawyer with the public defenders then. And even then they told him if he didn't change his position, that they would get blue flu. And that's what they did that day. And so he did change his position. So I'm saying that when you put the circuit attorney in charge of something of public integrity, it's already hard. I have always advocated for the circuit attorney to have somebody else to investigate their cases, because if the police get mad at you, they can make it very hard for you as a circuit attorney because they investigate your cases. As a public defender, we had to hire our own investigators. But if the police decide they want to have blue flu, don't investigate your case, and if you're in charge of public integrity to look at what's going on, that makes it to me just too complicated and conflicts. So I always wanted it separated. And I've advocated that no matter if it was George Peace, D. George Hayes, Jennifer Joyce, and between D. Joyce Hayes and George Peach, we had a circuit attorney that was a Republican for a few months. And then even now with Kim, who I get along with, have known forever. I just think it makes it very hard and people blame you for stuff. And then the police get mad at you for doing your job. So I just want to caution you with putting this kind of language in a bill and then having a very different public circuit attorney than you have right now. Because Kim will go after people and ask the hard questions, okay? And some won't. And even when they will, some will back down and say, well, the police are mad at me. I need them to do my cases, so I cannot keep them mad. So I don't know if we had somebody else who could be in charge of that wouldn't be open to any kind of political pressure from the police department. And I'm just being very honest, okay? And I don't have any suggestions right now. I just want to caution that we will not always have the same circuit attorney.
Okay. And then Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, you were asking Dr. Dan, I like saying doctor, it just rolls back.
So I think one of the things we have to recognize in this effort is that there is a government structure that exists that can't be overcome. There are three entities that can potentially bring criminal charges against an officer. On the federal level, that's the U.S. Attorney. The FBI would investigate that. On the state level, potentially, the Attorney General for the state of Missouri could potentially bring criminal charges. The third person in that layer is the county prosecuting attorney or circuit attorney. So fundamentally, there is no other entity, whether it's Kim Gardner or whoever else in the future, who will be able to make the final decision on criminal charges. That's irregardless of whoever conducts the investigation and provides that information to one of those three entities. So, you know, I realize people might be uncomfortable with that reality, but that is the reality. And until the Constitution of the United States has changed, Constitution of and laws of Missouri are changed, that will remain. And so I think we're trying to do the best we can under the structure that exists. And to be honest with you, that is not going to change.
Vice Chairwoman Tice, are you there?
I don't have any other questions. I just want people to be aware of that. When you first get in office, you're thinking these people are going to be in place for a long, long time. And that doesn't necessarily, and so with different administrations comes a different look at your laws. So that's the only thing I wanted to say. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, just asking the question, because I saw that there. So different people do different levels of enforcement. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee and the public. First of all, I do appreciate all those who came and gave us their thoughts, desires, and opinions. Many of them are very valid. My list is long. I'm going to try to go through it as fast as I can. Most of it is just pertaining to what I consider to be clarity required in the understanding of the bill and who has what authority. As that one conversation that was just finished was on my list, because the Circuit Attorney's Office always has the power to create an investigative process, irregardless to whether the police department believes it should happen or not. So that's something that everybody should understand. And also they need to understand that, as Dr. Eisen just indicated, any and all of the authorities of power, which are the Attorney General's office and the U.S. Attorney's office, can intervene and create another investigative process and or want to press charges. And many of those who are on here who are in this field and follow know that a particular incident, a person could choose not to have charges pressed against someone who has violated their rights, but yet the state or the city or the federal government could choose to further pursue that. So I say that to say there's more protection there than we realize. And we all have that opportunity as public citizens to ask for additional assistance if it's needed. The new director, sir, I want to applaud you with your background. I want to share with those who had problems with how this department was run for civilian.
Alderwoman, you muted for a second there.
Yeah, it's back. You must understand that in order to help a committee, an oversight board, the one who is in charge of facilitating must have experience to know what direction to go in and what resources to bring to you so that you can deliberate appropriately. We have a patient component that needs to be strengthened, and we probably need to put some more money towards that so that as you all move forward, if the public is educated, it really doesn't make, none of this means nothing, because people will just have outcry and it won't be in the appropriate manner or in the right direction. And people need to have more education about this process and their rights. So I'm hoping that we can improve on that. Here, I also look, when we talk about not having current police officers doing the investigations, well, there's no reason why you should. I don't know why that's even a question. There are too many people out here who have the appropriate experience, and you can hire those people to do your investigations for you. One group that I always stay close to, because we had this independent process in the 19th Ward some years ago. We had received a JAG grant, and so we hired our own prosecuting attorney that was housed in the Circuit Attorney's Office, but that person handled all of our cases. So we didn't have a backlog and we didn't have to wait. We also hired our own investigator because we needed somebody who focused solely on that neighborhood. It was in such a bad shape. And we also made sure a lot of education, everything from people understanding how to write a lease, the trouble could be. But one group that is really thorough, and if you talk to them, I think you will find some opportunities, is the Retired Police Officers Association. You see, most of those people there came from an era that was very different from where we are, where we have been most especially the last 5 to 7 years. Most of those guys that are retired have never pulled their gun on anyone, have never shot anyone. So it's twofold. The culture of society changes for us. Respect for law enforcement, the opportunity for people to outgun the police force, and also looking at the police side of it, needing to have what I consider to be a certain fear that I'd never thought would ever be there, but I do understand it, because you got to remember, these are human beings that we're dealing with. And a lot have left the force. That's why you see so many vacancies, because they understand that our culture of today is no longer what they could be a part of as far as trying to provide public safety. So we have to be very honest with ourselves and look at different places and people who have experienced different things to help with this process. I'm supporting this bill. I'm going to listen for amendments, but as our president of the NAACP said, first of all, you need something to work with so that then you can evaluate more succinctly and with purpose what needs to be changed or improved upon, because we don't know that yet. We haven't really implemented a true process. It is now there. Let's start working with it and be prepared, with all of us with oversight, to make changes when they're needed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alderwoman Carol Howard.
Yes, I agree with what's been said previously, and I'm in support of this, but I believe it's a work in progress. And I think that as we move forward and we really delve into this and get the counsel of the new commissioner, who I'm hoping, may have some input to this and may wish to make some amendments, and the sponsor, I think we can move forward with this. And as we look at it, I mean, there are things that I'm a little bit questioning is, the circuit attorney's involvement, being a county office, as someone previously mentioned. Is that something we've looked into? Is that allowable? Do we, and I just want to delve into this, and I think I can vote in favor of this. But as we move forward, do we need to make some amendments? Possibly. And through this conversation and this dialogue, I think we can get a better bill. And if we have to come back and make some changes in a year or so, or in a few months, and that's fine too, because this is a living document. As people change, as the alderwoman from the 19th said, our society has changed, and we need to be not caught up in some of the archaic things of the past, but we also need to deal with the human beings that we're dealing with. And I appreciate that. And thank you so much for your work. And Mr. Brumman, welcome. And I wish you the best in your endeavor with us here. And hopefully we'll be able to get this going and have a good experience for everybody. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Alderwoman Kara Spencer, have you joined us? I don't believe she's joined us. Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
I want to thank the previous alder people because I look for them for guidance because they always kind of help me through things. So this was an education period for me from Alderwoman Tyus, Davis, and Howard because, you know, you all have been out there in the forefront. And it's interesting because what Alderwoman Davis spoke on, that was in the 19th ward. It's just funny how if we just watch, history can repeat itself. We had the exact same thing in the 27th ward at Wallbridge. Jennifer Joyce had an office in Wallbridge, and they had a circuit attorney there, an investigator. I mean, it was very powerful because the residents were involved. And I think that was the magic word. The residents were involved and they kind of controlled the dynamics in that community. And ironically, in the 90s, that area was called Murderville. And after Jennifer Joyce put her office over there and those residents got involved, the crime just dropped. Because residents were educated on process, procedures, they knew what to do, they knew how to handle business, they knew how to hold people accountable. So I agree with Alderwoman Tyus, Howard, and Davis. We probably need to look at this, critique it more to get a better understanding and to help people in an overall way. So, you know, that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Basley, I saw you come in for a second. I don't know if you're still with us.
No, I'm actually on. I don't know, my phone is, I'm not getting really good service.
Okay.
Alderwoman Boyd is still frozen. I didn't even hear the last 10 seconds or 15 seconds of what she said. Can you hear me well at all?
Oh, I can hear you and we can see you.
Can I be heard?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
you. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Is it afternoon yet? It is.
It is.
Number one, my apologies to all of those individuals who has lost someone. That's a terrible thing to have to deal with. We deal with a lot of losses in the city on both ends. And that's something I definitely hope that one day, very, very soon, that us as residents can figure out some sort of, not necessarily a permanent solution to, but get some sort of relief from the way things have currently been going. At least we can, kind of look back and change some of the trajectory of where it is that we're headed based on our past. So once again, my apologies for those who have lost folks. To also those officers out there that are working hard every day, doing the best that they can to represent the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and our citizens the correct way, and end up intertwined with stories like these where we do have questionable actions from other officers whom, once again, the reason we're here now is trying to find a way to where we can clarify situations like this and find a better way of having a pipeline of trust and communication between citizens and our police department. So I appreciate everybody working in that particular field. Thank you for all those folks that came out to speak today also. I do think this is a very important bill. I do want folks to remember this is, the law is alive. So it can be changed. Once again, this is something that isn't going to be perfect. I don't think there's a perfect way to bridge this gap that we're trying to figure out how to fill right now. I think we're going to continue to figure out ways to come back and strengthen it up. And we'll find ways that, in time, once again, people that aren't in these positions, as Alderwoman Ty said, they'll be picking up balls on things that we aren't privy to, things that we may not even be thinking of right now, because there are things that have not happened that will happen in the future where, once again, they'll be coming back in with men laws all the time. And I think this will be nothing different. This is a very, very good start. I believe it starts this very important conversation. Not even starts it, it continues this very important conversation that has had many different people working on it for some time. So getting to this point is taking some time. So thank you once again to the sponsor, Alderwoman Tyus, those folks, bills, that get us to where we are right now. So I am in support of it. I do think, once again, there'll be many changes that happen in time. I want to say that I do support our police officers. I believe that no one on here does not support what our officers do every day, but this is a way that we are trying to figure out how to ensure that there is trust being built back in between the police department and our communities, and different instances where we do have police involved shootings. There is a balanced way that we've all worked out to say, hey, this is maybe a better way to go about investigating these type of things. So this isn't to lower the morale on the police department. We know that there are murders and homicides going on out here right now. We want them to feel like we appreciate the work that they do. When they go out there and have to make split second decisions, we don't want them to feel like they won't be supported when it's done the right way. But we also don't want folks to feel like you don't have to also think quickly before you make that split second decision also. So there's a flip side to both of this conversation. And just to be balanced, I appreciate the conversation and us being able to get to a point where we're amicable about saying that something has to happen at this point. So I'll
Thank you. Alderman Oldenburg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to thank the sponsor. I know this is kind of one of the hearings that she wants to have to ensure we're getting input from all four corners of the city, as well as input from what we call stakeholders. I do know it's important to the sponsor, and I appreciate that this discussion probably should involve the police department, particularly those members that are represented by the Police Officers Association. It should probably involve the Ethical Society as well, and the broader law enforcement community. I think should have a seat at the table if we're going to also be crafting a bill that clearly impacts them. I think would think it's prudent, and it sounds like we have the time to solicit an opinion from the city councilor's office. I know at the end of 2021, the Missouri legislature passed a law enforcement Bill of Rights. I think that should be looked at to ensure that we're not in any contravention to Missouri state law with the language in this ordinance. I also think this ordinance needs to be balanced with Garrity v. New Jersey, right? Garrity rules associated with officers and the rights they have giving sworn statements. There clearly, I think, needs to be some changes where we're all comfortable associated, being associated with Garrity rule in this bill. So I think there's time, and I applaud the sponsor for allowing for time for those things to happen with this. I will also just say that, hearing some of the discussion today from citizens, and I empathize with their frustration around this. But I think it's important that we remember that, recruitment is at an all-time low in the St. Louis Police Department. Retention and fleeing officers are an all-time high in the St. Louis Police Department. Ask an officer, and they'll tell you morale is incredibly low. So I want to make sure that their voice is heard. And I'm troubled by some of the discussion points that quite frankly, cast serious accusations that the starting place is that sworn officers are inherently bad and murderous, and that police can't investigate themselves. These are sworn officers of the state. And I think if you ask many professionals in law enforcement, including our public safety director, yes, like any entity or organization, sure, there are bad actors, but I don't want us to lose sight of that we need police, and we need them to have the proper training and the proper resources. That's also part of this discussion, and I don't want that to get lost. as we move forward with this piece of legislation. I do have a question, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate for the Public Safety Director, if he would yield for a couple of questions.
Dr. Dan, yes, would you?
Yes.
Questions, sure.
Thank you, Director Isom. I appreciate it. Can you recall, has there been any cases that you're aware of currently in your time as Public Safety Director, or when you were on the department as its chief or other, where FIU or IAD just got it wrong and the Missouri AG's office stepped in to overturn or insert itself into an investigation, or the DOJ saw this rampant problem with the Internal Affairs Division in the police department, or has a consent decree ever been called for by another level of government? Because I do want to make sure, if the goal here is that, police just can't police their own and we want involved citizens, these are professional investigators. So I do think it's appropriate that we have that professional expertise and that subject matter expertise at the table. So I just wonder, has there been any overturned case or investigation by the FBI or any of those other entities that I mentioned where FIU or IAD got it wrong?
Yeah, so, this is part of the reason why, of course, I framed my initial comments around the fact that I was actually over internal affairs for 3 years.
Sure.
Certainly, I trust myself and I trust that I have integrity. But I've come to the conclusion that this is not about that. It's about the fact of whether or not our investigations were thorough and complete, or it's really about setting a framework where members of the community who have a distrust for the police department can feel comfortable within the framework of all the things that you're talking about: Garrity, employee rights, our personnel rules and regulations, and even more importantly, the criminal law and the protections within the criminal law. All of those things apply to the structure of how we put this together. So I guess what I'm saying is that when there is a segment of the community that really distrust the process, then I think it's incumbent upon us, within all those rules that you're talking about, to try to think of another framework that could build more trust. And so I really think that is what we're trying to accomplish here, is to build a new framework that builds better trust. But to your point, no, I haven't seen of any instance where another entity outside the police department came in and found that there was something that was completely wrong in terms of an investigation. But I don't think that is the point. And so, even for officers sometimes don't trust internal affairs and the investigations that they've done. And so this might be a way not only to build better trust and on the civilian side, but it might also have the effect of increasing morale on the police side if it's truly independent.
Understood. I appreciate that. Thank you for that answer. I'll just further state real quick here and then complete my time. But I would like to unpack the metric of distrust for police and what that means and how vocal that is, how abundant that is in the city of St. Louis, or is it just the activist community amplifying that the city overall doesn't trust police? So as we move forward, I would like to unpack that metric that a majority of the city has a distrust for the police department. I think that's false to say that the statement that I just said, that I don't believe a majority of the city has an inherent distrust for the police and the men and women who
No, and if you thought that I said that,
no, I was not, but I do want to unpack the metric of your statement of we're trying a new framework because we've heard from the citizenry that there is a distrust of the police department. And you know, can those cries and calls of distrust be handled another way as opposed to, you know, completely overturning the apple cart? Is, you know, purely a query, I think, for this committee and for us to all think through as we move forward. So I appreciate it.
If I couldn't, I usually don't do this, but I will jump in for a quick second. No member of the association, either of the associations, contacted the sponsor, because I checked, contacted me. I am the assumption they contacted you. I'm the only other member that I don't know of any other member they've contacted. And they certainly were welcome to come and speak at this. I would have given them every opportunity. So, you know, their involvement, this has been an ongoing process. I've gotten calls from the people that, the jailers, so they were certainly aware of it, wanting to know and had questions. It really just, you know, I mean, to say that somehow we blocked somebody out or didn't listen to somebody, they could have been at the table from the very beginning of this. This was not something that came up yesterday or the day before. And certainly they were welcome to be here today. I wished, in fact, we would love to have had them come and speak. You know, I don't know if you're speaking for them, but.
Well, I will say, Mr. Chairman, they again, I think this speaks to the morale in the department and the association that represents many members. They see their presence at these hearings as their mere presence as a volatile component, and they want interaction. So I told them that that's false. I told them that they need to be invited. They heard that. I think they want to be part of the discussion, and I'm glad that there's ample time for it. So I don't think I'm going to say it wasn't disrespect on the association's part to not show up or to not reach out. I think they're a little concerned on what to do next because they don't want to be misrepresented, and they don't want their words twisted. You know, as they move forward. And I told them that, you know, I think that underlies the point that there's distrust kind of both ways. And we maybe this can be the vessel to rectify that.
How does somebody's words get twisted when they're in an open meeting? Their words would be what their words are. I have 2 kids in the police department.
Sure.
And I trust both of them. Okay. But, you know, and
I will say they're happy to be part of the conversation, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad that this isn't the only opportunity for it. So there you have it.
They're going to have an additional opportunity to speak, but this, we're not, I mean, when you say ample time, we're not going to be doing this over the summer break. I think the goal of this was to do it before we go on summer break, which, you know, unless the sponsor tells me otherwise, you know, the hiring of the people are already in the budget. So no matter how this comes about, you know, it's in the budget if you read the budget. The people that will be paid are in the budget now. So anyway, I'll move on from there. But I did want to say that I know we're very aware of this.
Sure.
But could have certainly called the sponsor. Even if they're mad at me, they get mad at me, then they're happy with me, then they're mad at me. They go back and forth. You know, I got a lot of respect for the police. That's a fact. But, you know, again, they could have at least called the sponsor. If they're mad at me at this minute, they could have called the sponsor and said, hey, you know, or they could have called, you know, Dr. Dan Isom to say, hey, you know, can we sit down? This was well vetted, my understanding, from the city councilor. You know, so I'm just saying, and I really should I just wanted to say that when you say it like that, you feel like we purposely didn't include them.
Oh,
And that is so far from the truth.
I didn't say that, Mr. Chairman. I didn't say that.
I took it as that.
They're happy to be invited to the conversation and they look forward to it, is what I will say.
Okay, cool. I'm glad to hear that. I wish they would have been here today. Is there anything else, Alderman Oldenburg?
You tell me, Mr. Chairman, this is your committee. Thank you.
No, I'm just saying.
I have
Are
nothing
you
further.
going through statement? Okay, that was your, okay. Alderman Breton Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman. So just wanted to say that I appreciate all the conversation that we're having here. I know that the Alderman from the 26th has diligently tried to build bridges with various stakeholders and members of the community who sometimes have very different views on how this process should work. I know that there's been a lot of work both from the administration and the Alderwoman from the 26th on the nuts and bolts of this, how it needs to actually be laid out in order to both be legal and be successful, because we certainly don't want to tread on the circuit attorney's office. We don't have the authority to do so. So this is something that we did have to work with the circuit attorney on in terms of the public integrity unit. And that's why we have two different units in this piece of legislation. There's the public integrity unit and the force investigation unit, because we can't take away any of the circuit attorney's authority to bring a case should she see fit, should whoever is in that office see fit, because they have the ultimate authority to do so. So this has been a lot of footwork from the Alderwoman from the 26th, and I appreciate all this conversation, and I hope that we continue to have the conversation so that we can ultimately get a good bill out of this that's going to work for everyone. So I know that we're pretty firmly in the meat grinding right now, but I hope that the sausage making can continue and we come out of this with a good product in the end. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And Alderman Clark Hubbard, we'll skip over you. Alderman Page.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and special thanks to Dr. Isom and Mr. Brumman for their participation in this hearing, as well as those who spoke pro and con related to this matter. My thoughts are very much aligned with and parallel to those of the Alderwoman from the 1st, the Alderwoman from the 14th, the Alderwoman from the 19th, and the Alderman from the 16th. But from a little bit different perspective. I heard clearly and appreciate Dr. Isom's constitutional explanation of the involvement of the circuit attorney. However, I wanted to let this committee know that I listen diligently to the members of my committee from all corners. And I had a number of people come to me once they became aware of this current board bill. And they were made up, that group was made up, and they came separately. It wasn't a mob, but they came to me separately. They were business owners in my constituency. There were private citizens, and believe it or not, there were police officers. And they expressed grave concern about the involvement of the circuit attorney in general, and specifically the current circuit attorney, that person's involvement in this process. Before I go another inch further, let me say that I am foursquare for an oversight process. But I kind of wanted to let this committee know that there are concerns and from the police officers' concerns as they express them directly to me. They are very concerned about declining morale. They're concerned about the possibility that they have historic issues with interactions with the circuit attorney's office. And so I think we need to some kind of way in our legislative process, take these matters under advisement and in our deliberations, because we want to move forward. We want to move forward in the processes in the city. I don't think we want to destroy any particular groups or agencies within the city. So I'm glad that this is not a vote today. I'm glad we will continue to work on this board bill, this legislation, this oversight committee, and hopefully we can bring things to a better conclusion by the time that this or another civilian oversight bill is passed. I just wanted to get that in everyone's ears. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
Thank you. Anyone, alderperson that is not on the committee that wants to speak? Okay, I don't see anyone popping in, so I'm going to wrap up because I get to go last. First off, I do have 2 children on the police department. I've said it multiple times. I'm a strong supporter of the police. I did take some whatever that I felt like they could have talked to. They certainly have in the past called and said, hey, you know, will you or will the sponsor of a bill come in? And we haven't gotten that. And, you know, this isn't about the police morality, because if we don't start paying the police more, they're going to leave anyway. My understanding, Jefferson County or St. Louis County is offering them their total time and rank if they'll come out there. This bill, I don't think is going to hurt our help, but I think that pay, and there's a lot of reasons that, you know, but I have also heard from a police officer that thinks this is a good thing, you know, and said that there's other states or areas that do this, and that they feel like they get a little better shot at things too. This is certainly not a perfect bill, you know, at least at the minute I'm not on it, but you know, this is not aimed at saying that the police are good or bad. It's got to do with at least making the public, at least the public that is protesting and overturning cars or doing anything that they shouldn't do, it at least gives that, in my opinion, you know, maybe they see that we're trying, you know, and hopefully what would come out of this is a trust. Because if the Board of Aldermen was allowed to investigate itself and say, you know, in the case of whatever has just come up, or, you know, not even counting that, if that was only allowed by us to investigate it, even if we were completely true and honest and said, this is the facts, a lot of people are not going to believe us. I think by introducing this, it just helps the public have a one more layer. And they may not even believe this, but at least it's one more layer. And I think it's an attempt to, you know, show we're trying. For anybody to say this is an assault on the police, it's untrue. Again, I would never do anything to harm my kids. I would say that if something came up with one of them, I would want as much as an open investigation not only by the internal affairs, but by the civilian group. You know, and I think, you know, they would come through it fine. I think a lot of police officers that we have are really good at what they do, and they have a lot of integrity. So, I mean, that's just my statement. I just don't want anybody to feel this is some sort of a bill that's an assault on police, or to say because of this bill, the police are going to leave the city. Because there's multiple reasons that the police are going to leave the city. And if we don't figure a way to pay the police more, the paramedics, the firefighters, the dispatchers, if we don't pay them, it's not that they're going to leave, they are leaving. So that's my, you know, that's my take on all this. And so what I'm going to do is the sponsor, and then Dr. Dan and Commissioner, if you all want to wrap this up. And if anybody on or off the committee has any other input or questions, certainly just raise your hand or jump in. You know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. So this meeting accomplished exactly what I wanted it to do, which was start this conversation on this level, this part of this process. But let's be clear, didn't start with us like Alderwoman Tyus said. It started so many years ago, and then it became real here starting in 2015, changed in 2017. Here we are in 2022 with changes. So this is a marathon, right? This is going to continue to change. We have to control the narrative and not get lost in the translation of what people are saying, not get confused by some of the things that people are saying. I'll just speak for myself here. The narrative sometimes will control and make you not want to deal with certain groups or certain types of people. I myself went to the POA and apologized for never being over, never going to talk to them because of some of the things that people were telling me. And I opened the door then, and the door continues to stay open. When I came in on this process, there were specific people that I wanted at the table to note for Alderman Oldenburg that the city council's office has been in this prior to me and continues to be a part of this ongoing conversation and help write most of the legislation. So, you know, I think that the conversation needs to continue. There are definitely going to be some changes made. I've gotten texts during this meeting from police that say they're members of both of those unions, and they definitely would step in and speak. I'm not sure where I'm not really sure where it's coming from that they weren't invited, because that's not the case. I want to make sure that this works for all of us. If it's going to be real change, you can't have change at a table full of people that all agree with you anyway. You have to have people that are on different sides to come together in the middle. That's where the change happens, right? And this, you know, the notion that this legislation or any legislation would change the morale of the police department, that's just taking it off into another direction. We can't legislate morale, right? That's something that has to be worked on internally. We got our own morale to deal with over here, right? So if we're gonna come together and make an example, then let's start there. And so with that being said, Alderwoman Davis made a good recommendation. I had asked for about 3 meetings, if not more, but at least 3 meetings on this. And we had asked for one of them to be on a Saturday, but she recommended an evening, which is good too. So I had put in the chat to ask for the meeting that's scheduled for next Wednesday, if we could possibly move the time back on that one, and we can work with everyone's schedule to make that an evening meeting. Because again, I've been getting texts the whole time. People are engaged in this conversation, and they might not be comfortable coming on a setting like this or talking with us, or like Alderman Page said, his constituency has pulled him to the side. We have to continue to keep these conversations and these comments open, so that we move the needle the right way, right? So if you didn't get heard today, please, now I'm telling you this was not the last opportunity. There is no last opportunity for myself, and I believe my colleagues serve the same way. We continue these conversations to get the work done on behalf of the constituency at large. Everybody knows my relationship with the police officers. I have a great relationship with the police officers, I do. So this is in no way, shape, or form any kind of being put against each other in that kind of way. And I won't let anybody speak for me or speak on behalf or make it seem like that's the kind of narrative, because it's absolutely not. And they know that, and they have been texting me and encouraging me throughout this conversation today. So I want to make sure that people know, again, in closing, that this is not your last opportunity. This is not set in stone. I never asked for a vote today, so this was not trying to be rushed. And I appreciate the fact that Commissioner Brumman was on here today, because quite frankly, he didn't have to be. And he took the time out to be here to make sure that he can stay at the table. He's been engaged. Dr. Isom, again, from day one, this is all even before me. So them being on here, I think we have opened the door for anybody who wants to be on. These are public meetings and they're publicly aired. Talking about transparency, the transparency piece. So this is where we will continue. Again, next Wednesday will be our next meeting. I'm hoping that we can push it back in time, working with everybody's schedules. If you can't attend the meeting, you're listening in the public, but you have a comment, email it to your alderperson or email it to the board clerk so that it can be put into the record of this about this board bill, about Board Bill 47, so that we can get it into a place that we can move it forward. But the bottom line is we have to move it forward. We have to move it forward. So thank you all for the constituency that came on. We respect and hold regard for your real life lived experiences and feelings that you have. And we care about those. And that goes for every side of that conversation. So again, thank you all for having this meeting, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. Any words of wisdom? Okay. And Commissioner, any words of wisdom?
No, thank you for allowing me to listen in. This has been very helpful.
Okay, and is the clerk on here with us anywhere? Is Terry Kennedy?
I can double check.
I'd like to set the meeting up for next Wednesday. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, you thought 6 o'clock, if I'm reading the chat right?
Alderwoman Davis, do you think 6 would be okay, or?
6 should be sufficient, yes.
And are we doing it by Zoom, or are we going to meet somewhere?
Oh, we're going to be by Zoom. Dr. Marty's already given us our instructions.
Okay, so Sharita, if you would please, if you can check with Terry, the schedule is for 6 o'clock. I know that we also have Board Bill 55. So is Alderman Oldenburg, are you still with us?
I'm sorry, Chairman, that was June the 29th at 6 p.m.
At 6, but we also have a bill for Alderman Oldenburg.
Okay.
So Tom, would you want, you're still hard earlier, and we'll just do 2 meetings that day, an early?
Fine, sure.
The only reason I say is because I think your bill might take a little time, or am I wrong?
No, I think that's fine. What's on the schedule, 2 o'clock. I'm fine with 2 meetings that day.
Okay, so Sharita, we'd like to have, so Board Bill 55 heard at 2 o'clock. And I know that I think Dr. Dan Uda has to be a part of that one. That's the firefighter pension, which anyway. And then, so Sharita, we really like to do 2 public safety meetings that day. One at 2 o'clock and one at 6 o'clock.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, at 2 p.m., we're going to hear Board Bill 55.
Right.
And then at 6 p.m., Board Bill 47.
Right. And the people for the jail oversight, the 2 people, the one from the mayor's office and mine.
Okay.
And I already told Terry I'd like to hear that. So
okay. And we're meeting at the 2 p.m. meeting?
At the 2 p.m. meeting.
Okay, got it.
And the other one, since it's going to be a lot more public, although public's always invited to any meeting.
Okay.
So does that make sense? So,
got it.
So that's kind of the plan. Any other questions from anybody on the committee? Hearing none, does anybody want to move that we adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn the public safety meeting.
We're just all in favor? Second, and all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Hey, thank you, and thank you everyone for participating today. We're adjourned.